So, Anat, let's just start with why don't you walk us through the what was the catalyst for your research?
Yeah. So, as you know all too well, probably evoking some PTSD, sorry about that, there has been a tired debate in Democratic Party circles that we need to make a trade-off and either go after the so-called white working class and just talk about bread and butter issues, and that where we went astray was when we went into quote-unquote identity politics, which a functional country would call human rights, but we don't. And then a group of people who have reminded us that the core of a progressive base is Black and brown folks, and we have a mobilization problem. So rather than actually accept this gospel, that this was an either or, Ian Haney-Lopez, who of course wrote Dog Whistle Politics and Merge Left more recently, approached me as someone who does empirical testing and research and looks at why certain messages resonate and others don't, to figure out, is there a message that weaves together race and class that is both more galvanizing to our base, increases turnout, increases civic participation and interest, and actually more persuasive, that this is not a trade-off? And it turns out, lo and behold, there is.
Okay, now, just to be clear on this dynamic, because I've also interviewed folks who have argued that the main driver of this election, the sort of the overarching theme is negative partisanship, and that that persuasion is not necessarily not as necessary as depressing, frankly, the vote from the other side, which I think, we saw Donald Trump do this in the context of the 2016 election, where to some extent he was helped by some of the baggage that Hillary Clinton had in the context of the race, but in other ways he promoted this, and some of his allies through Facebook ads and whatnot promoted this the depression of Democratic voter turnout. And of course, there was also voter suppression. But what do you say? I mean, where does that, before we dig into the research and we talk about those that messaging, which both addresses the economic anxiety and does it in the context of embracing the idea that particularly on the Democratic side, we have a broad tent with a fairly diverse constituency. What do you say about how does that tact intersect with the idea of this being a negative partisanship being the sort of the driving factor of our elections at this time?
Yeah, I mean, it is undeniable that partisanship is a hell of a drug, and we can see it empirically that when we test a message generically and then we test those precise same words in that order, but we precede it with the Democrat says or the Republican says, it rapidly alters people's response to that message just by giving it that label. So, of course, it's true that negative partisanship is at an all-time high, but my rejoinder to that is, number one, that does not account for mobilization and the need to turn out, especially on the Democratic side, people who don't tend to turn out. And they don't tend to turn out precisely because they feel that we've given them nothing to vote for. All we have done is given them something to vote against. And the choice is not A or B. The choice is A or B or stay home. And all too often the answer is C, stay home. So that's my first answer. And then the rest of my answer is that the data actually don't support that claim. What the data show is that there is a group of people, and in certain districts, especially in certain key races, they absolutely can make a pivotal difference. And, races are won or lost in districts. They're not won or lost at the national level. So this question of whether negative partisanship is meaningful, it's kind of irrelevant if you're just looking at it nationally. If you're looking in a specific place in Pennsylvania or in Michigan or in Ohio or in Arizona, et cetera, that's that's where it really counts. And that's where there's a much finer grained nuance to be seen in terms of who we can still get and who we can still flip. And in many cases, that's around 65% of voters that are still trying to figure out which way they're going to go.
So you're suggesting that there are 65% of voters who either could vote for the Democrat or the Republican, that they sway back and forth. I mean, how do you know, as opposed to, because I've heard this. All right, go ahead.
Not at the presidential level. I'm talking about down ballot, because for me, the election is more than just the president. And we see.
No, I understand.
Yeah. And so the effects of negative partisanship, obviously, they're the most acute and noticeable the higher up the ticket you go. And they're unprecedented in terms of a polarizing figure like Donald Trump.
Right.
But when you're trying to take care of the entire ticket, and in some places that also includes ballot initiatives, in my own state of California, for example, then you can't just be looking at negative partisanship, because in some cases that doesn't even apply if you're talking about ballot initiatives. Right. Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So, but what about in between there? All right, so ballot initiatives, it makes sense to me that there would be a vast number of the voters who are persuadable. I mean, frankly, I'm in this business. When I go look at the whatever number of ballot initiatives are on there, I have no idea what to vote for half the time. So I'm easily gettable by either side. Particularly based upon maybe it's a certain amount of partisanship, but it's, I'm looking for specific cues, and then I would imagine between that perspective and the presidential race, that it's almost a sliding scale as to how wedded I am to local candidates. And by I don't mean me, I mean just a typical voter. So that's where you're saying that there's a certain amount of play in there. So much of this messaging is most valuable for congressional races, senatorial races.
Yeah, I mean, certainly when we look at how we implemented it in 2018, it gave us a lot of room precisely at those levels, House, Senate, House, Legislative, or Assembly, depending on what state it's in. Those are the places where we have more room to play. And then the other thing, just to complicate the matter, is that most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, the work that I do is not advising candidates themselves. It's advising grassroots groups, independent expenditures, people who are sort of in and around the campaign, but not the campaign themselves. And the hypothesis going into that we certainly saw bear out in the work that we did in Minnesota is that what we need to do, the way that we reference it in psychology, is that we need to change the decision architecture. We need to change what is top of mind for people so that when they receive the actual overt political message, whether that be a flyer or an ad or, something digital, that instead of having top of mind fear and anger and resentment and a sense that some quote unquote other is on the take and out to get them and the reason for their hardship, they have a different set of ideas and defaults top of mind so that when the campaign itself, the candidate themselves, swoops in with their vote for me, people are hearing that through a different lens.
So we're talking about research that you did basically looking into what kind of messaging works for democratic policies. And in some respects, it was the catalyst for this was to push back or to examine the thesis that Democrats need to be less racialized, I guess, and less interest grouped. I don't know if that's a verb or an adjective even, but they need to focus on the white working class, and they need to focus on economic anxiety. And your research basically says these messages are not. This is not an either or decision. That you can actually do both, and that by doing both is actually more effective. Tell us what about the research and then ultimately what you found.
Yeah. So it's not just that it is more effective. It's that unless you understand that a message is like a baton that needs to be passed from person to person to person, and if it gets dropped anywhere along that way, it is by definition not persuasive. Most of the time, even when you're talking about a presidential, we're not in the realm of $5 million Super Bowl TV ad buys. We have to get our message across by understanding that if our words don't spread, they don't work. And so if you're landing in Fresno or Poughkeepsie or Akron or, wherever in this country that is outside of kind of the coastal bubbles, and you're swimming around in a sea of red MAGA hats, and you're not particularly politically inclined, you don't pay much attention, then that indicates to you that this is, quote unquote, the way the world works. This is what people believe. This is common sense. And so in order for a message to be persuasive, it actually has to be a message that galvanizes the base. Because unless the base is out repeating the message, the middle is not actually even going to hear the message. So the research is really rooted in a recognition that if the base won't
can I
carry
interrupt
the
you there
message,
for one moment? So basically what you're saying is like you need the choir. The choir is the one who goes out into the community and has the bake sales, essentially.
If the choir is not singing in harmony, then the congregation is not getting the song, and the congregation, to extend the analogy, if you'll allow, is not out getting converts.
Okay.
Make America Great Again does not work as a slogan if the only people repeating it are the campaign. You have to get the base to actually repeat the message in order for it to reach the middle. And that's why the way that we've done public opinion research, the way that Democrats have over the years, is just fundamentally flawed. If you are looking for a milquetoast message that everyone in the sample kind of sort of likes and turns off no one, by definition, that's not a message that your base is going to repeat. And so the way that this research was done was to look for a message, to use math that says the winning message is the message that, one, engages the base and moves them from agreement to desire to repeat. So we measure not just, do you like this? The message is not running for homecoming queen. The job of the message is not to be popular. It's to make people do what we need them to do. Number two, it has to prove persuasive to the people that we can get that are of mixed minds and can swing either way. And then number three, it has to act as a ready rejoinder to what the other side is saying, because the other side is talking race 24/7 with their, quote, illegal immigrants and their, quote, doesn't believe in our way of life and Sharia law and a culture of people expecting to have everything handed to them. They have been using a dog whistle ad infinitum forever and ever and ever. And so what the research tells us is that when Democratic candidates attempt a colorblind economic populist message, better health care, lower college costs, better wages and working conditions, but the person has just heard from the other side, Juan is taking your job, or it's those people who just refuse to work, the economic promise can't land because politics is not solitaire, right? We don't have the luxury of making the other side shut up. And the other side is talking race 24/7. So basically what we see in the research is that the race class narrative, which I'm happy to, walk you through an actual message, not only is more effective, is more persuasive with the middle and obviously better with the base than the opposition, it's also more persuasive and more galvanizing than a standard colorblind approach.
Yeah, well, walk me through this.
Yeah, so basically the architecture of a winning race class narrative message, which is totally flexible. You can make it be about housing, or you can make it be about taxes, or you can make it be about a candidate, or, fill in the blank. It begins, step one, rooted in a shared value that explicitly names race. Notice it does not begin in the Democratic standard, which I like to joke is, boy, have I got a problem for you. So sentence one is something like, no matter what we look like or where we come from, but most of us work hard for our families. Or whether we're white, black, or brown, most of us believe that people who work for a living ought to earn a living. So it starts there with a shared value that names race. Step two is when we name the problem, not first, but second. And we name that problem, we narrate the dog whistle. So instead of just doing the plutocrats or at it again message, which is sort of a standard economic populism, we actually talk about how the right uses scapegoating, uses deliberate division in order to abet plutocracy. So in language that sounds like, but today, a handful of wealthy people or a wealthy few and the politicians they pay for divide us against each other based off of what we look like or what our accent so that they can continue to take and hoard the spoils that our work creates. And then step 3, it makes a call for unity across racial difference in order to overcome this deliberate division. So what that sounds like in language is by joining together across racial differences, we can make this a place where freedom is for everyone, no exception. Or by joining together, we can elect new leaders who respect and believe in every one of us, black, white, and brown. And that's basically the 1, 2, 3 punch of it.
And so it seems, I mean, and you tell me if I'm wrong, it seems that on one hand, for people who are subjected to racism, that inherent in these 3 steps is a recognition that racism exists. And it also feels that for those who feel that racism, that there is racial tension, this also sort of recognizes that, but provides a solution. Is that it? You like sort of trying to cover all bases there, and it's also sort of it also is an expression of just how racialized it seems the entire electorate is.
Yeah, I mean, it is all of the above, and I mean, you put your finger right on it. It is oriented toward these things that you're experiencing, these things that you're hearing, these things that are being said about you and done to you, depending on whether we're talking about a white listener or a Black or Latinx listener or other people of color. It is acknowledging, yeah, you keep hearing that Juan took your job, but actually, in point of fact, Juan is sitting in front of the Home Depot trying to make some day labor. Jeff Bezos took your job, dude. You know, sometimes I will jokingly shorthand it to people as point your finger at the bad guy, not the brown guy.
Well, this is fascinating stuff. I wish we had more time to talk about it. People can check out your podcast for more information. Then, of course, check out Ian Lopez's book, Haney Lopez's book. Anat Shenker, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.